The revolution will not be televised.
The revolution will be streamed live.
What's up, everybody? It is another episode of Critical and Thinking with your boy Ty Barnett
and Ian Harris.
How you guys doing? How you guys doing?
What's happening? So we're coming back around. We're gonna talk. We're gonna talk some politics and some other stuff here again. We had some wrestling on last weekend. If you didn't get a chance, but by the way, go back. Totally different podcast last week or last time we were out, which was Sonya Deville, WWE superstar.
That's right.
And that was cool.
I geeked out a little bit. Geeked out a little bit.
It was good. It was good. So yeah, we're gonna get back to a little bit what we're doing. We're coming up on this. We're coming up on election time and time to.
So it's gonna be a few things we're gonna. Okay, so listen. Everyone that listens to the podcast, you know what? If you get a chance, go write us and let us know what you want to hear on the show. And if you want, you can tell us what you don't want to hear on the show. It's not like we're going to listen, but still, the point is that we want to hear your voice. But what I'm saying is to say that we're open, as comedians, we're open to talking about a bunch of stuff, but we're also adults. We're also dads. We also vote. So we care about this country and we care about what happens in this country. So sometimes you will hear shows that are more so politically driven versus some that are just kind of goofy. So we try to mix it up for you guys, but feel free to let us know what you want to hear and feel free to listen and subscribe to the Critical and Thinking podcast because
and share.
Yes, please do. Let people know. And you know, we're open-minded people. We are. I like to think that we are. So don't be upset about that. But we got a couple of things. Like you said, we're going to talk about the midterms. Right. We're going to talk.
And we have two guests on the phone today. So we're going to actually, right on the phone right now, I'm going to bring in this guy I met. I was actually at Dragon Con, talk about geeking out a little bit. And he came to my talk, not my comedy, my talk on martial arts and did a story for his magazine online site and so we met. It was cool. We did a nice little interview. It was really fun. But so joining us today from the New York City Skeptics and AiPT Science editor, it's Russ Dobler. Welcome, Russ. How's it going?
Oh, good. Thanks for having me on, Ian. Good to talk to you again.
Absolutely. And then I saw today and this is Ty, by the way. It's so funny because I this whole time I until you clarified that it was Dobler, I was thinking Dobler, and I kept thinking all I could think of was Say Anything. Lloyd Dobler.
Right.
Lloyd Dobler.
Oh, that's right.
Did he pronounce? Well, it's more like, hey, Conrad Dobler. Remember Conrad Dobler, the football player?
There you go.
He used to bite people's fingers. Yeah, think about it that way.
Wow.
Yes, I was just like, hey, Lloyd. I was really excited about
two different visuals right there.
Lloyd Dobler. So what's going on, man? What's happening? What is happening in your world? Let people know what you do and tell people about what you do.
Well, so I'm not going to get political at all. That is not my bag. So I'm going to take it down a notch.
Okay, it was nice talking to you, man. Take it easy. Have a good one. No, I'm just kidding.
So what I do is, Ian, I know you and we care about skepticism a lot, but I think I love what you do because a lot of times those kinds of topics don't really reach the people they need to, because people do great work in magazines and, great investigations, but it all kind of gets circular in a way and you kind of get stuck in the echo chamber sometimes.
Absolutely.
So what I like to do is I like to highlight the science and the skepticism that you see in pop culture, that you see in comics, books, video games, whatever, and maybe even kind of try to apply critical thinking skills to those things to kind of get it out to a wider audience. And the site I write for is called AiPT Comics. It's mostly comics, but it's comics, movies, pro wrestling too.
Nice.
We got a big wrestling section. And I have my own little fiefdom, my own little corner called the AiPT Science section, where I talk about all that stuff. And, I'm always looking for new contributors because that's the biggest thing to me is because if you can get an expert to talk about something and, kind of put his own spin on it in his own words, I think that connects a lot better than, just talking to anybody.
Yeah. And, I was going to say, science, I know it ends up, unfortunately, being political, which is everything's political nowadays. But it's we have a lot of science. We had Cara Santa Maria on here not too long ago. We had Yvette Donchamon, the Sci Babe, on here. And we, science education and getting science out to the masses is, to me, it's got to be one of the top three issues at least in this country, but definitely in the world right now. I mean, when you look at the political climate, no pun intended on climate,
right.
It's crazy. It's crazy that we're arguing, that there's scientists saying, hey, in 20 years we might be underwater in some of these. I mean, they're saying it's worse than we expected. And when you think about some of this stuff is being politicized, and we have the political, the party that we have in power right now, it's crazy to me that there's 30 to 40 to 45% of this country that denies everything from the fact of evolution to the fact of climate change to these things that are basic facts that every third grader should know. And we have adults arguing with you and calling you libtard on social media, on Twitter and Facebook, because you believe in facts. That's crazy to me.
Well, let me ask you something. So yeah, it's a two-part question. One, to answer Ian's question, I want to hear your stance on that. But also from the nerd perspective, because there was a time, if you told somebody you were really into science, like you were kind of looked at like as a nerd. It's like, look at this guy. I mean, whatever. But now I think, honestly, if you're into science, like the Sci Babe shit, like there are females in cultures that are really into this type of this area of education, and it's no longer looked at as, oh, look at this geek. It's looked at as, oh, tell me what you know, and I want to hear what you got to say. So when do you think that shift happened to where now it's cool to be into science? And then to answer Ian's question about why these people are so quick to deny that these things are happening, even though they're happening in the places that they live.
Right. Well, I think the kind of the shift to science being kind of a hip thing, it's always kind of, I mean, science fiction, and geek culture, it's always kind of been intertwined. And at some point, and you know what, I might actually, I'm kind of Marvel biased. I like Marvel a lot. So I think I'm going to give some credit to the Marvel Cinematic Universe here. I think the advent of that might have been the turning point when geek culture kind of started to become American culture. And
Tony
now
Stark.
it's kind of
Tony Stark.
It's kind of it's like everywhere now. It's pervasive. You can't get away from it. Think of Comic Cons and all the cons that pop up for different fandoms all over the place. And at the same time, I was kind of bothered me that science was kind of tied to geek culture, science and skepticism, because skepticism especially, I mean, everybody needs it, right? Not just science, not just, geeks. But at the same time, now that it is kind of everywhere, you can kind of still sneak it in front of a lot of different people. And at the very least, I think all science people, all skeptics are probably geeks, but not all geeks are into science and skepticism. So
if I can grill it.
So if we could kind of close those two circles together, then at least we're getting somewhere.
It's funny, when we were at Dragon Con, our good friend who's been on our show as well, Leanne Lord, great comedian, total nerd. She's so awesome. But she had a show at Dragon Con as well. But she also hosted a bunch of panels. And one of the panels she hosted, which was really cool, was they did the science of Wakanda. And they actually
Wakanda forever.
And they actually merged. What they did is, the idea was, what part of that science fiction, because we all know that, and that's a big question too, does science fiction influence reality, or does reality, or are those people just really good at predicting where science is going? Because so many times we see the future, we see science fiction, and then 20, 30, 40, 50 years later, it's exactly the way it was predicted. But that's what they talked about, was how much of Wakanda technology, Wakandan, it could be in the future. And it was a really cool discussion they had about we're already doing this, or and you think about 1984. I mean, he was a couple decades late, but that's happening right now.
Well, it still trips me out that we still don't have flying cars. I could have sworn we predicted it happened. I saw it on the Twilight Zone. But now let me ask you something. So right now, because you say you're in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so I'm sure I don't have to tell you any movie. What thing have you seen in the movie? Did you say, damn, I wish that was right now. I wish we had that right now, and it wasn't a movie thing?
Common Sense. I'm sorry.
I wish I could synthesize atoms in my basement like Tony Stark in Iron Man 2.
Okay.
Which is a great moment, like when he made the new element, which was a great moment, but also really ridiculous. You know, I won't get too down on the science of, you know, Marvel or anything else too much, because like you don't want to kill the fun, because you're trying to communicate with people.
I totally believe that he made his Iron Man suit out of nanotech. I totally believe
the funniest thing about that was that he had to follow these schematics that his dad left him so he could make this new element.
Yep.
If you know anything about chemistry or physics, the only way you make a new element is like jamming protons into old ones. You just smash them in there and boom, you've got something new. So it really didn't take a lot of planning, just a lot of power, and probably not something he'd have in his basement. It was a cool moment, but you know, but again, it's one of those things where you can kind of take off from that and say, "Yeah, that's pretty cool," but here's how it would really work.
By the way, I think I did that when I was a kid in my bedroom. If you looked at how dirty it was, I think I created several new elements.
Why do I feel like the Kaylee Kuko character in Big Bang Theory right now? Both of y'all seem like y'all know way more about this shit than me. So okay, so no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. Actually, I to go back to your political question. I will get into it a little bit. You guys convinced me.
We got it,
sucker.
But you talked about Ian. You talked about these are plain facts, and how can people not believe them? Sad thing is, there are plenty of psychological studies that say facts don't convince people. Facts don't change people's minds. It's all about group identity. It's all about tribalism. It's all about signaling to the group, your people, your family, your town, whatever it is, whatever your social group is, that you're a member of that group.
And playing on their emotions. And getting
it's very emotional,
which is hilarious to me, because every time it goes both ways. I just think it's funny, like people have these, like on the right and the left. Like on one hand, everyone on the right's like, oh, the left doesn't love free speech, but every time you see a censorship issue, it's always somebody on the right. I get the same thing. I have all my right wing friends are like, oh, you libtards, all your stuff is based on emotion. I'm like, yeah, like abortion and yes, all these scientific things that people on the left believe, that's all based on emotion. It's just meanwhile, everything you're doing is based on emotion. You're not looking at science. It's just it's funny. We all have our things that we go to based on emotion, and things that we go to based on fact. I just think it's overwhelming one direction more so than the other. But yeah, it is really bizarre to me that people don't care about facts. But when you think back, I mean, how many times have you heard people say, man, why did I have to take math? I may hear people say it all the time about stuff like, I should have learned the stock market. That's something they should have taught in school. I'm not saying it isn't. Or we should have taught cooking in school, because that's something you're actually going to use. Meanwhile, here I am learning calculus. And I'm like, anytime someone says that, I know they didn't learn calculus. But they're like, here, when am I ever going to use math in real life? Like, I hear that all the time. It's like, you mean logic?
You mean regular how to count and balance a checkbook and manage your funds? Yeah, sure.
And on top of that, you learn
knowing measurements.
When you learn algebra, you're learning or geometry, you're learning logical proofs. That's what you're learning. You're learning how to take the elements that you have in front of you and find the hidden pieces and put together to find the answer. That's logical thinking at its purest. It's like, but that's people don't think about it that way for some reason.
Okay, so have you ever talked to somebody that you knew more than, and then had to pretend like you did not know more than them?
I don't know if it's so much pretending. It's more a matter of...
he said, I don't pretend. I just let
It's more a matter of showing your humility and kind of asking leading questions. I gave a talk on astrology once. I only got 10 minutes to do it, and this was in front of a mixed crowd.
Wait. And they gave you only 10 minutes to talk astrology?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I had to debunk all of astrology in 10 minutes. But it was actually useful. So the way I spun it was, I gave a little bit. My bachelor's degree is in geophysics, so I kind of if astrology worked, I could probably tell you how it worked, but it doesn't. So I basically I threw out like one equation, not to overwhelm anybody, and said, all right, let's look at this, and if astrology worked, you'd see it this way. But then after that, I just kind of went through all the logical fallacies that we, use to make ourselves believe something, the way we trick ourselves, confirmation bias, all those things.
Right.
And I had a list of about 20 of them loaded up. And I said, all right, I've only got 10 minutes. I didn't tell them I had 20. I said, I've only got 10 minutes, and let me see how many I can get through. And, I got through about maybe 18 of them, and then my timer went off. And I was like, well, I did the best I could. There's a lot of them out there.
Wow.
And I went up, and somebody came up to me afterwards, and she said, well, all of my friends fit into specific astrological signs. I mean, that's why I'm friends with them. And I said to her, well, I mean, did you kind of reach that conclusion after you already knew them? I said, well, how about this? Isn't it possible that, there's a lot of people in the world. Isn't it possible that could be true for you just by random, and it's not true for most people? And she doesn't really buy any of it. But, like I said, at the same time, that's about the best you can do. Just be humble and ask questions and try to plant that seed.
And laugh behind their back. Of course. It's simple. I got you. I totally understand.
No, but it is funny. I mean, that people don't even understand basic, like you said, confirmation bias. I mean, like, just understanding that, and then being honest enough with yourself to say, yeah, because everyone does it. I don't care how skeptical, how scientific you are.
Oh, yeah.
We all do it. And the trick is to put yourself in check and admit that you're wrong. It's really hard to admit you're wrong. I mean, people.
That's the thing, yeah.
I mean, I'm guilty of holding on to stuff too long sometimes too, and having a hard time admitting I'm wrong. But I usually, if you point out that I'm wrong and you show me with hard facts that I'm wrong, I have no problem. The only time when people say, "Oh, you never admit you're wrong," it's like, well, that's because you haven't proven to me that I'm wrong yet. Like, if you show me data, let's go, let's do it. But it's really hard, even in the face of data and even in the face of facts, to be able to say, yeah, I was wrong on that. I was, because people think it means that you're admitting you're stupid or something. And it's like, no, you just made a mistake, or you didn't have all the evidence. You made the best decision with the evidence. Now you have new evidence. Now you can come up with a new position.
Do you find that among other scientists and other people that are smart as you and know and have the same level of extra education? Do you find that they're more open-minded to new ideas, or they still are closed off to what they've learned? And because to me, I'm thinking, if you've gone to school, you got a master's in this degree and all that, and do you think people still have room to be opened up to new trains of thought, or you think they're set in their ways in the science community?
Well, there's the old saying, a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. And the way I think of that a little differently than
they said it about Coke.
I think of that a little differently than a lot of people do, because if you have a little bit of knowledge, it's like Dunning-Kruger, right? If you have a little bit of knowledge, you can fool yourself into thinking you're really knowledgeable about something. Yes. And the funny thing is, again, there are studies out there that it's actually, it's not the Republicans, the conservatives with high school educations. A lot of them actually accept climate change, but it's the more educated conservatives who deny it because they find reasons. They'll dig and they'll convince themselves, and they'll use little bits of evidence here and there, and they're more sophisticated at arguing, basically, and they're more sophisticated at convincing themselves.
Right. Yeah,
but their original premise is off. It's the same thing with people. There's a lot of there's quite a few intelligent people who get stuck into cults or that are highly religious, and they're educated and smart. And you go, how the hell does this guy believe the Earth is 6,000 years old when he's a geologist? And you're like, because somehow somebody planted this thing in his head that he has determined as fact from a long time, never fact checked that one thing, and everything else logically falls into place if you accept that initial premise. And I remember learning that when I was a kid, listening to Rush Limbaugh, and I'd be like, oh, this guy's arguments are super sound, but I know there's something wrong with him. And then I look at it, I go, oh, because the premise that he threw out up front is complete batshit nuttery. And I go, oh,
that's a technical term, by the way.
He pulled it out of his ass. And everything from there follows logically, but you have to accept that initial premise. And if you just go, and I remember I was a skeptic. I actually took a class on skepticism, and it was speech, argumentation, and persuasion. And I brought him this one of those old the professor. I brought him one of those like Saint Anselm's, like, you know, proof for God or whatever. And I said, hey, help me with this one, like, you know. And the first question was like, do you believe that God is that which nothing higher can be conceived? And he goes, nope. And he walked away. And I went, no. I'm like, that's all he had. He goes, no, I don't. And I was like, oh, all right. Well, there you go. And I was like, shit, that's right. If as long as you don't accept this premise, the rest of it's, you know, is all BS.
And that's why I think, and that's why I was asking if he found a lot of people in the science community that are smart and they open their minds up, because I can tell you, man, there are certain things I don't know. I mean, I know it's hard to believe, but there are certain things in the world I don't know, and I purposely don't talk about them. But I also am open to these trains of thought that when people come in and they say something new, because I mean, I know certain things, but there are certain parts of this world I'm like, oh my God, I've never even heard of any of that. So I was wondering, again, among people that your peers that are also, you know, educated like you as well, you know, are they, you know, still stubborn in their ways, or are they just like,
yeah, okay, you're right. I mean, it's true. It's true. You're right. I mean, the sad thing is, as scientists, we're supposed to be the people. We pride ourselves on changing our minds with evidence. But a lot of times there is that stubbornness,
right?
And
Wow.
it's more rare. You know, seeing a highly educated scientist change their mind is rarer than you'd expect. And a lot of the times when you see paradigm changes in the sciences, it's not because somebody came up with this great argument. It's because the adherence of the old stuff just died off.
Right.
And the famous example is, I mean, think of Einstein. He's, you know, oh, this guy's some kind of Einstein. That's who we talk about as being a really smart guy, right? Einstein denied quantum mechanics until the day he died. Experiment after experiment after experiment.
Wow.
He just wouldn't believe it. And he didn't believe it because he just didn't like it. He thought it was inelegant. He said God doesn't throw dice with the universe. He just didn't want to believe it, so he didn't.
And see, that's something right there that's blowing my mind. I'm like, I gotta look at Einstein a little different now. Hold up.
Well, even, you know, I mean, Hawking was a little bit that way as well, in that, you know, there was a couple moments where Hawking had fought, you know, his held on to one of his big theories or hypothesis for a long time, and then finally it came back as you know, that it was that. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but
Hawking is actually a good example.
But then he eventually turned and said, "Yes, I was incorrect."
Exactly.
But he held on to it for longer than a lot of people probably thought he should have. But eventually he said, "Yeah, okay."
Yeah, he used to make bets with another astronomer, Kip Thorne, about, like, I think the famous one from, you know, 20, 30 years ago was that he made a bet with him about whether a certain object in you know, a certain astronomical object was a black hole or not. It ended up being that it wasn't, and you know, he admitted it. And once, you know, the data came in, and I think he owed Kip Thorne like a year subscription to Penthouse or something like that. and he did pay off on it. So
great consolation prize.
Well, hey, we have to. We actually probably need to move forward, because we have to. We actually have a guy calling in to talk. Getting people out to vote, but you know, we got about 5 minutes here. So what is your thing? So we call the show Critical and Thinking, and the thing is that we always want everybody to come at something with us that they're critical about. Yeah, Ty?
Wait, before you ask him that, because I know that's going to probably be a deeper answer than the next question.
Okay.
In the Star Wars universe, if you had to be one or two people, Han Solo at his prime or Luke Skywalker?
Luke Skywalker. I'm not very adventurous. I am a geek, you know. I'm very. I sit down a lot. I don't really. I'm not interested in making the Kessel Run in any kind of.
He was so cool up until then, bro. All right, go ahead.
So our thing is, you know, like I said, critical and thinking. We like to either ask one or both. Something that you want to get out there that you're critical of, something that you're just really a pet peeve, thorn in your side that you want to talk to people about, or something that you've made you think, something that you changed your mind on, that you were against at one point, which kind of fits with what we're talking about now, and you had to eventually change your mind and make a 180 and say, okay, I was wrong here, or a new evidence has convinced me otherwise. Right. So, Nate, what are one of those things that you'd like to bring out? And
well, I'll give you one that I think kind of plagued the skeptical community and at large for a while. And I don't know if it was so much that, well, maybe it was. Because I remember a few years ago, so I'm part of the New York City Skeptics. We have a big conference every year called Nexus, Northeast Conference on Science and Skepticism. Leanne Lord is actually our MC now for the past 2 years. She's coming back again next year.
Oh, nice.
A few years ago, we had a debate between Kevin Folto, who does biotechnology research, and some anti-GMO guy.
Right.
And this was, I think we were kind of on the cusp. Skeptics as a whole maybe were a little distrustful of GMOs at the time, or at the very least didn't know what to make of it. And I think that, not just locally, I think that was kind of everywhere.
Right.
But,
and then
being there in the audience. Being there in the audience. Well, remember, Bill Nye changed his mind. I think he was anti-GMO for a while.
Right.
So sitting there in the audience watching the two of them talk, I mean, to be fair, we probably could have had a better anti-GMO representative. Yeah. He wasn't, but at the same time, it was like, this all makes a lot of sense. Why didn't I think of these things before?
Right.
And I think that really caught the wave that kind of swept through, all logically, critically minded people being like, yeah, what were we so worried about? Yeah, I mean, it's just a technique. And then, obviously the rest of the world didn't catch up to us, but I think that was an interesting
right.
and an interesting point where, we were all kind of like, wait a minute. And then we were like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've always kind of thought of it that way. Is that it's like, I get in this argument all the time where people say, well, you're talking about selective breeding, because I go, the word GMO is ridiculous. Everything we have is genetically modified.
Yeah.
That nobody eats maize anymore. Nobody eats heirloom tomatoes. Everything we have is genetically modified. Go find a nectarine in nature 4,000 years ago, before agriculture took where it is. Like, go find a pear. Go find an apple that's edible, that's more than 8 centimeters large. Like, it doesn't exist. The difference is that what people are talking about are genetically engineered versus genetically modified. When they say GMO, they mean genetically engineered. And people are just scared of the science. I mean, like, they call it Frankenfood. Because what are you doing? You're taking out a gene and you're selecting this gene to out of this thing to breed. You're basically crossbreeding in the lab and coming up with seeds in one generation, as opposed to over 20 years of many generations. And you're weeding out all the shitty stuff that comes along with it.
You're making it better.
Exactly.
Immediately, and immediately, without making the ones that are the fucking crazy hybrids that get all wacky and, oh, this didn't work, let's try this one. Oh, this one didn't work, let's try this one. It's, let's make this, and this will, oh, here's a tomato that lasts a year longer, or that has an extra month without freezing or whatever. It's like, why is that bad? Because people put out those things that there's salmon DNA in these tomatoes. Well, don't you? First off, there's no such thing as salmon DNA. DNA is DNA. Second of all, you eat salmon and you eat tomatoes. So why does it matter if there is some sort of thing?
I think it's honestly this thing of people are so afraid of change in this, again, to go back what we talked about earlier, their belief system.
Right.
If you challenge their belief system, what they've grown up on,
right,
it's hard for them to see anything other than that. Even if you tell them, like you just said, we're getting rid of the bad stuff in here. We're making this, how do you know it's bad? Well, my grandparents dealt with it. Well, I don't know what to tell you, So I think that's part of it. That's part of the reason why you have this resistance to it, because, we used to cook with Crisco. Remember Crisco? Well, but lard, actually, like the white stuff. Like you would take it, put it in a pan, it would melt in the pan, and that's all. It made the best chicken, the best.
Right.
And then you get older and you start realizing, oh shit, I probably shouldn't be.
It's probably not the best thing.
Yeah, it's probably not the thing. So his was crazy, is that if I were to still live in Chicago, I would be around people that still cook like that. They wouldn't, but living in California, I'm like, oh, I probably should do a different kind of oil if I'm going to do that, use more olive oil and stuff like that. So I honestly think at the root of some of these people's problems with sciences like this type of stuff, is they're scared of you shaking change and shaking up their world.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on. Tell people where they can find you, what they can do, where they can like you, and all your stuff, everything you got.
Don't tell them the Luke Skywalker thing, though.
So like I said, if you're in the New York City area, check us out, New York City Skeptics. But my main avenue of outreach is through AiPT Comics, specifically AiPTcomics.com/science. We talk about all manners of skepticism and science in comics, books, movies, TVs, whatever. So go there. If you like it, share it. Help us get the word out, because I really think this is how we reach people, beyond the echo chamber. And if you're willing and able, hey, contribute too, because the more voices we have, the better, because the bad guys have a lot more voices than we do.
That and a lot more money.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, thanks, man. It was a pleasure having you on, and we'll hopefully maybe I'll see you next Dragon Con, if not before.
Yeah, I hope so.
Appreciate you, bro. Take care, man.
All right, take care, guys. Thanks.
This is Critical in Thinking with Ty Barnett
And Ian Harris. Go ahead.
We subscribe. We got to tell people that. This is we're building something here. This is grassroots.
Yes.
All right. So go like the page, like the whatever we did, whatever you see with us on it, go to it and tell other people. You know what I'm saying? Because like I said, we're open minded. But we're also funny people, so we tell jokes as well. So
and speaking of grassroots, the guy we're gonna have on right now, you're gonna hear me call. I'm gonna call this guy. His name is Naseem Makiya. Oh God, he's gonna have to pronounce his last name. He's the founder and CEO of Outvote, which is an app to get Democrats elected this November.
that's right, politics, bitches.
Yeah, back to politics. So I'm gonna give Naseem a call right now, and we will talk to Naseem about getting out to vote.
Hi, Ian.
Hey, Naseem, how's it going?
Pretty good, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Thank you, bro.
And this is Ty, my partner, Ty Barnett.
How you doing, man?
Hi, Todd.
Hey.
Ty, yeah,
Ty,
T-Y.
It's okay.
Oh,
People,
Ty.
no. Believe me, dude, you're not the only one. It always happens. I always tell people Ty, and they say Todd, and I'm like, I need to enunciate more.
Yes.
And that's great until I go back to Chicago and I get around people who I normally talk around. They're like, motherfucker, why are you talking all proper and shit? I'm like, because I've been telling people my name and I have to enunciate.
They're like, whatever, Todd. Let's move on.
I have the same issue. I just say Steve at Starbucks at this point. So.
No, actually, you know what? Say your name, because Ian we were trying to figure out.
Well, your last name. I fucked up your last name.
Oh, yeah. Last name's Makiya. So
Makiya.
Okay.
Makiya. I wasn't sure if it was Makiya. I was like, oh, man, I'm going to screw this up. All right, Makiya. Cool.
That's all good.
Yeah, Naseem. But, honestly, Naseem is not that hard. My name is Ian. It's 3 letters. Starbucks has never gotten it right. I'm like, it's 3 letters. Hey, Ian, how do you spell it? I, and the first they write E. I go, no, start again. I, they write E. Start again. I, they write... Whatever you want to, however it works for you, so that you can call my name and I know that it's my coffee. That's all that matters, dude.
Steve, macchiato for Steve.
Yes, exactly. So tell the people that we tell our audience what it is you do and what it is you are doing.
Yeah, so we're Outvote, and we're basically an app to get Democrats to go vote. Campaigns right now basically spend a lot of their budget on ads and emails, TV and radio ads. You guys probably get a lot of text messages from strangers these days, just like, hey, it's Emma or Joe from the campaign, and don't forget to vote.
Right.
So we're trying to shift that budget a little bit to conversations between friends and things that actually kind of get people to the polls. It turns out a lot of that stuff people just ignore.
Right.
So what we're trying to do is we've built an app that you can basically encourage your friends to go vote, remind them to vote, make sure they're registered in the right place. And, especially we'll tell you if they live in a swing district. So it would be really critical that they vote. So if you're living in like a solid blue or solid red and you feel like your vote doesn't matter, well, there's a good chance someone who does, or
right.
like your friends will be well connected to other folks who do.
I love it.
And the one thing I've been thinking about, I mean, this is way bigger than we can't do this in 2 weeks, but with all this purging of of voters and
Cheating.
Absolute cheating, purging of voters and making and these
Crazy.
stupid law that these laws they have where you have to have a specific driver's license, and if it doesn't have a picture of you that was from a week and a half ago, then it's invalid, and just all this kind of, if you don't
stuff
drive,
they're doing in North
you
Dakota,
must drive
bro.
a Cadillac to the polls. Why? I don't
all kinds of stuff. Yeah, and they'll send you something in the mail, and then if you don't check the box and send it back, they'll take you off the, you're not registered anymore. What?
Well, and the other thing is, people, I just saw this yesterday, people don't know that you send back in your ballot, it takes 2 stamps because it's too big. Your ballot is bigger than a regular mail. So it says right on it, may require extra postage. So people put a stamp on it, mail it back. It'll come back to them, the post office. It won't get there in time.
That's right.
So
Monsters. Straight monsters.
The thing is, my thought is, I would love to see a way in the future where we can just go to these places where people have been kicked off the polls, or go to these places where these old people can't get to the DMV. Because that's the other thing. Then they go close the DMV in these areas, so they got to go 50 miles. So just go to their house, bring a people that are authorized by the DMV, go to their house, sign them up, get them their ID and their registration at their house, or get a bus and go, okay, tomorrow we're picking you up at 12. We're going to drive you out here. We're all going to get registered. We're going to drive you back. And I wish there was a way we could do that, because I wonder how many people are going to show up. Or have volunteers at every poll, that when someone shows up and they go, "Oh, you're off the poll. Here's a provisional ballot. Do this right now. Here's how to do it."
Because a lot of people don't know to ask for that. By the way, they don't know to ask for the provisional ballot. So let me ask you, dude, because I actually just had this conversation with my daughter, my oldest, she's old enough to vote, so I'm trying to convince her to vote, but she's of this mindset that it doesn't matter because the corporations are controlling a bunch of stuff, which she has a point to a degree about the corporations. You think about what's going on with the NRA and what they're doing with the Republican Party and all that stuff. But I'm trying to get her to understand that 100, because I don't know if I told you this, but I saw, did you watch Fahrenheit 11/9?
I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen that one.
You should watch.
But I've heard it's good.
It's really good. And what I did not know myself was, I knew a lot of people didn't vote, but I didn't know it was 100 million.
Yeah,
100 million people did not vote.
It's crazy.
So
and it's worse in the midterm.
Yes, so do you find your job is being? Because to me, it sounds frustrating already. It sounds frustrating. What do you find is the hardest thing for you right now? And what are you doing personally? What is your, I'll tell you this real quick, because we're comedians as well. So when I do jokes about Trump, I have to change my wording sometime to get these people to understand what I'm about to say. What are you doing specifically? I know it's
you
crazy.
should make all your jokes about Voldemort.
Well, you know what I'm talking about. But what are you doing specifically to get these people who are already apprehensive about voting? What are you doing to convince them to get out there and make their voices heard?
Yeah, well, I think that's the whole thesis behind this thing. I think part of it is that, your daughter and a lot of people, like her, are feeling that way, that their vote doesn't matter, or that, corporations control everything, or that, depending on where they live, it's always going to go one way. But and they're subject to all these ads and stuff. But the fact is, if all her friends were doing it, she would go vote. So
Good
you
point.
just need to network into that, right? And somehow kind of get friends to kind of do the right thing, or at least get that leader in the group to start the peer pressure, basically, and start being like, hey guys, this is important. These midterms are probably the most important of their lifetimes, but potentially for many years to come.
It might be.
It'll be the most important.
It might be. Several people have said, and they're joking and being hyperbolic, but they're also serious. I've heard many people, actually some very, very high level political analysts, say this may be our last election. And they're not joking. They may just say, you know what, we don't need to. They've already done it. They've already said that. They've already said with the Kavanaugh thing, with Medicare, with healthcare, with all these things, 70% of the population is saying we don't want this,
and
or
they're
we
still
do want
doing
this,
it.
and they don't care. They just say fuck you. We don't. They just thumb their nose and they do not care at all what the American people say or want, or they do not care. They don't care if their children die from climate change issues. They don't care. They're getting theirs. They're on this earth for 10, 20 more years. They're going to die with 900 houses and a few yachts, and that's all they care about. It's insane to me that that's all they care about. But I think the other thing, though, that you need to do with like your daughters, we also need to not tell people. It's kind of what Russ was just talking about. We need to quit telling people. You need to ask your daughter questions and make her answer these questions. So you say the corporations run everything. Even if that were true, let's say that Hillary Clinton has corporate ties, just like Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell have corporate ties. Do you think, asking her this question, do you think Hillary Clinton would have picked Brett Kavanaugh for the Supreme Court?
Right, exactly.
Okay, so even if she picked another corporate-y guy, don't you think she would have picked somebody who at least aligns with what she says are her views? And if she says these are her views and she doesn't vote along those lines, and there's 100 million of you ready to vote, guess what? In 4 years, you vote for Bernie Sanders. And if Bernie Sanders doesn't vote along your line and appoint and put Supreme Court justices and these kind of people that are going to work for you, then you vote that guy out. And you can do that regardless of the corporations.
Right.
And the thing is that if you tell her, if you really think that the corporations are controlling this, then the fact is you're right, because the corporations are the ones telling you not to vote.
Right. So that brings me to what I wanted to ask you. So I get what you're saying about the getting their friends to vote and kind of put the peer pressure on them to do this. With your app, is it like how was your approach with the app? Like, so when I go to it, like, is it like a Facebook for politics like that? What is it?
Something you text people?
So the way it works basically is what we do is we match your phone contacts to a national voter database of over 260 million people. So we've licensed the same one the campaigns and the party and folks use, and it's provided by the 50 states, right? So that's publicly available information, not who you voted for, but just if you're registered to vote and if you voted in the past. So
you don't go what party? It's just whether you're registered to vote.
We tell you the party as well. So we'll tell you which of your contacts in your phone book, basically if they've missed elections, if they're Democrat or Republican, and their voting history, if they live in a swing district, is a key one. So, that's usually what folks are interested in. What we want to do is say, okay, here are your friends who missed a primary or missed a midterm, coming up. So they missed the last midterm, so don't let them miss this one. Or these folks live in a swing district. It's critical if they don't vote, that there's a huge chance that the wrong person gets in office and things get even worse.
Right.
Nice.
So those are kind of the compelling reasons. And then to basically distribute that, what we're doing is we're working with really big organizations like Move On, Swing Left. We've even built a nonpartisan version for Vote.org as well. We're working directly with Democratic state parties. We're working directly with candidates, some Senate campaigns, and we're working with Flippable as well, with a bunch of state ledge houses. So a bunch of campaigns we're working with. We're working with all the folks who have done the hard work of building big volunteer networks, over the years. And so we're kind of like, hey, we're engineers. We'll bring the tech, and you guys let everyone know about it. We'll make sure it works the way you guys want it to work, and we'll kind of turn some votes around.
Can I add? This is a totally side question, but it reminds me, because you mentioned Move On and a few other playing. Do you? I don't know if you have any. I wonder this. I really would like to talk to some higher ups that I'm on all those things, so I get emails every day from DGA and from Move On, and I get them from all these different PACs, like Democratic PACs, right? Always trying to raise money. It's, I get an email from Kamala Harris saying, if I don't get $1 from you now, then Brett Kavanaugh is going to rape your children. And I'm like, oh no, I better do it. And then the next day it's like, woo, wow, what a great job we did. We stopped Brett Kavanaugh from raping your children. If you don't give us $1, then it's all going to go away. And they do this whole thing every day where it's fear, and then the next day is congratulatory, but we still need $1. Fear. And I go, don't you realize, Democrats or whoever it is, all these organizations, I know they're PACs, and you are confirming everything that the fringe left says you are. It drives me crazy. Like, when I see it, it's like, there's a vote coming up in the Senate, and if we don't get $20 million by tomorrow, then it's all going to go away. Oh, really? How is $20 million going to keep you or not keep you from voting correctly? Like, I don't care how much money we raise for the DGA.com. How is that going to change the Republican 51 votes to confirm Kavanaugh. Like everyone knows that that's bullshit, and that just makes people cynical, and they go, these people just want my money. Right. They're just as bad as the Republicans, and I don't think they're just as bad.
First of all, there's not even a close comparison.
Yeah, no, but it makes it seem that way. And
I get it.
And every day I look at this and I go, you're just trying to scare me into giving you money. But the point is that how is my dollar going to make you vote no on Kavanaugh? Right. A, you should be voting no on Kavanaugh anyway.
Exactly.
And B, my dollar to you, Kamala Harris, isn't going to stop Lindsey Graham from voting yes. So it's like, it's not, and tell me how my money is going to work. Like, or when they say, Beto's lost 2 points. If we don't get X amount of money by tomorrow, we're going to lose this. Well, how is that going to help? Tell me what it is you're doing with this money that's going to magically make Beto go up in the polls tomorrow. Like it just reeks of corporatism, and it's driving everybody from the left away. It drives me nuts because it's like, change your strategy so that you don't drive half of your constituency away.
Well, I think that's part of the reason we're doing what we're doing is that folks are looking for a way to help and make an impact and care, but there's only kind of two things they can do right now. Either they can donate, which, like you said, is, sometimes it's the one-time thing. It's always a big ask for most people, right?
Right.
People don't have tons of money to give away. And sometimes it feels like it's not going to the right thing, like you said. They can also volunteer, a ton of their time door knocking, which is super helpful. But most people don't have tons of time. So what we're trying to do is be like, hey, here's the way you can help. Turns out your vote matters. So does the vote of the, on average, people have 500 folks in their contact book, and all their vote matters too. And they value your opinion. You can change their behavior in a way that all this money they're raising, it actually doesn't work that well when you spend it on ads and whatever else. It doesn't really work that well when it comes to turning out voters to the poll. In fact, it's pretty marginal.
Especially young voters, because young voters don't pay attention to that stuff.
So I guess that's why I want to know because I'm disheartened by what I'm seeing. Not necessarily, there are certain things that I'm seeing that I'm like, okay, I understand why this is happening, but they're like, right now, when they're the voter purge, the denying Native Americans their right to vote, they were here first. They're fucking here first. What they're doing in Georgia, what they're doing with trying to all of the voter suppression, here's the thing, they're not even trying to hide it anymore. Yeah. So that's the thing,
because they're in full power. They don't care. They've completely gone nuts with power.
Right. So. What do you think realistically? What do you think the chances are in the midterm realistically? Because we know facts don't matter to these idiots anymore. We know it. We know the corruption of because here's what they've done. They've convinced, and this is how they've gotten these. Man, I try not to get upset today. I fucking tried it. They have gotten these goofy motherfuckers to believe that their corruption will somehow help them. I see so many people posting, we're winning. And I'm like,
it's all about winning.
They are winning. They are taking their money. Well, they're not giving you anything. They're not giving
Trump
you.
Trump actually said, well, we won on the 60 Minutes when she asked him, God, I can't remember which question it was, but she's like, do you think that's right? And he goes, it doesn't matter. We won.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Like, that's all he cares. That's all he cares
so my question to you,
completely insane.
My question to you is that since facts don't matter anymore, since the corruption doesn't matter anymore, since the lying doesn't matter anymore to these people, what chances realistically do you think we have as Democrats to take?
Well, what you have to do is you can't trust the Republican Party to do the right thing at this point, and so you have to take back Congress, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. Either we need to pick up a couple of Senate seats, or we need to take back the House. And so you need to to be honest, what we've hit upon, we know works. We studied it in the primaries, and we found that as soon as a friend messaged one of their friends, sent them a single text message, they were 10% more likely to vote, which is a hugely impactful thing, right? Like when I'm door knocking, if I get someone at the door, which is about 6 times an hour at best, they're going to be about 8% more likely to vote. But when I send a single text to a friend, they're 10% more likely right away. So, if I spend an hour sending text, I would be pushing a lot of votes. So the fact is, like, if every Democrat did this, it sounds ridiculous, but if every Democrat encouraged all their friends to vote, and you'd be surprised how many of your friends don't vote, even if you think they're, liberal and they agree with you, and, a lot of people just forget, or they move and they got registered in the wrong place. There are all sorts of, like, valid reasons. I mean, aside from the ridiculous reasons of being purged or something like that.
If I may offer a suggestion when you do text these, if you add a booty shaking video, I guarantee you
it goes to 20%.
20 at least. At least.
Well, yeah, and I think
some clickbait at the beginning. Or
yes,
I think you're right though. I think it's more about it's like anything. We know this. We know this when it comes to doing comedy shows. I can do an event, and I'll have 100 people I invite. 10 will see, and then 90 of those people, I'll leave the town, and a week later they'll be like, "Hey, when are you coming to my town?" I'm like, dude, you were on the event. I posted 9 videos. I put up posters. I did this stuff. But if I go in and message each one of those 9 people and go, "Hey, I'm doing a show," my numbers double. Yeah. All of a sudden, 50 people buy a ticket. I'm like, oh, whoa.
The personal connect.
Because people don't see it unless there's a personal connection. And if it's just out in the ether, there's so much information, there's so much entertainment, there's so much stuff going on. We're not paying attention to these ads. And you need someone to hold your hand or to go, hey, here's what we're doing. Go out, get out, do your, and I think that this app could really work. We have to. There's a couple key places. I was watching Bill Maher this weekend and they were talking about 3 Senate seats. They said there's 25 congressional seats that are up that were won by Trump, but they were Hillary. That they were in states that were areas that were won by Hillary, but they're Republicans. So there's 25 that could easily go blue in the House, and that would win us, especially now with everything. So they think the House is pretty good. That we need, I think, 23 to flip it, and there's 25 that are already blue areas that are just happen to have Republicans in. But as far as the Senate goes, there's like 3 that are super important. And I think Missouri, Texas, North Dakota, believe it or not. So there's 4, and there's one other.
Right, and that's why they're doing what they're doing in North Dakota.
And yeah, exactly. And we have to, those are the places that, like, I know Missouri's like 47-47, like right now. It's so close. I know that Beto and Ted Cruz, there's not much chance for Beto, but he's not as far off as we think. I mean, who knows that 1 or 2%, if we can get some people out in Austin and Dallas and Houston, where it's actually more liberal and more diverse, he could win that. North Dakota actually and Maine, I think, is the other one where it's like they're super close and. But we're losing ground, but it's 1 or 2%, but that 1 or 2% isn't that much when we're talking a state like that. It's not, it's a couple thousand people really. So those places, look it up. If your Senate's if you're in a swing state or even a red state or any state, blue state, even if you think it's a solid blue state, you live in California like we do, go out and vote blue across the damn board. And that's it. You have to, because I'm not kidding you. It may be our last election.
And this is why I wanted to really get his opinion. Are you hopeful? Are you hopeful about what these midterms?
I'm hopeful. I think we're definitely seeing the blue wave over the past year in terms of turnout. I think black women alone have like won some elections. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, they definitely helped get rid of the pedophile.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's been awesome to see. I'm hopeful, but I mean, given 2016, well, like anything's possible. Like, do not sleep. Do not go vote. Do not download. Like, download Outvote and tell all your friends. Even if you think they're all going to vote, just you need to do something. And we're trying to just like give you a little bit more bang for your buck in addition to voting.
So tell everybody, but we have to wrap up. But tell everybody exactly how they do this and what they should do right now, so that everyone listening can go and do it. And if you're listening, go do it right now. Do not do this. Yes, you got your phone and your computer in your hand right now, I'm sure, because you're listening. So go on right now and do what you need to do, and then start texting people. So tell us how to do it.
Yep, just go to the Apple Store or Google Play Store, download Outvote. You can pick a campaign, or we'll just drop you into a general Take Back Congress campaign. We'll show you which of your friends have been missing elections, so you got to bug them. We'll show you which of your friends live in swing districts, so you want to make sure they vote, and you want to make sure they also download Outvote because they're probably pretty well connected in those swing districts. And just send them a quick text, send them a quick reminder, something friendly. It doesn't have to be over the top. but just make sure they're on it. They've got a plan to vote, and tell them about Outvote so they can do the same thing.
Cool. And then we will also, Paul, we can make sure we post Outvote when we put this episode up, that we can post that on there, a link to it. And,
I love what you're doing, bro. And you need to believe me, man. I want to be hopeful, but I'm also very aware of what we're up against. This, I mean, if you know Star Wars, like right now we're in the Empire Strikes Back. That's where we are right now. That's the episode we're in right now. So I love the fact that you're out here trying to get more people to vote, more young people to vote, because it's so funny because I was telling my oldest this today, that they're the generation that will fix this. The younger generation is the one that will fix what these old motherfuckers are fucking up. And I'm sorry, I tried, man. I did. You saw that. I tried for most of the podcast. But thanks a lot, man. I appreciate you being on with us. And thank you for doing this work, bro. We need you out there.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks so much.
Take care.
Take care.
Take care, brother.
Bye.
Wow. All right. So we got about 2 minutes to wrap this up.
Cool. We can do that. That's easy. We're not doing the what's name until the next
We'll do that on the next one.
Okay, cool.
We'll do that next
So we're going to leave with this. I know I say it every show, empathy and all that, but understand something. Even if you're not, if you're a Trump supporter, understand something. At the end of the day, unless these people are sending you a check personally, unless these corrupt senators are sending you a piece of the money that they got from the NRA personally, you're getting fucked. Unless these people are giving you money for your house, your family, your food. I ain't talking about the $100 little package or whatever. I ain't talking about that. I'm talking about giving you real money, like the money that they get. Unless they
Which
are
is
giving
your
you,
money that they're
exactly.
getting.
Unless they're giving you that, you are getting fucked. Quit thinking that you're winning because these people who wear the same jersey as you say that you are winning, even though you don't see it in your pocketbook, you don't see it in your house, you don't see it in your community, you don't see it in your school. How are you winning? This is how they're getting you to vote against yourself.
They're taking away your education. They're taking away your Medicare. They're taking away, and they keep saying, oh, the Democrats are going to take away your Medicare. Yeah, the Democrats who only fight for Medicare and healthcare, who have no power, we don't have any one of the branches of government. So anything that happens right now,
none of it.
Every single thing that happens right now is 100% because of them.
Everything.
Okay? And including right now, the economy. They keep talking about the economy. The economy is actually slowing down. The stock market is not a good indication of the economy,
especially if you don't have stocks.
Right? Yeah, I love all these guys living in their trailer. Well, what stock do you have, dude? Like, what, seriously, like you don't even have socks. What do you mean you got stocks? Like, what? Come on, like you, and that is not, and even if that was the case, it's slowing down, and we were still seeing a boom from Obama, and a little bit of push because corporations are excited a little bit about what's Trump's going on, but every economist is predicting a crash. You haven't got your taxes yet. Wait till 2019, and we'll see what your tax is like, because
exactly.
I love how everyone last year was like, well, I got $1,000 back this year. Oh yeah, well that's funny because the tax thing that just passed goes into effect next year, dummy.
Yeah.
Because you're filing 2017 taxes, not 2018. But we'll see. We'll see in 2019.
Go to like us, subscribe to Critical and Thinking. Again, you guys
share it and tell your friends.
Tell all your people. Tell everyone.
And also rate and review it, because that's what gets us up on the up there.
That's
rate and review it. Give us
don't hurt our feelings, though.
Yes.
That is unnecessary.
And like I always say, if you love the show, give us 5 stars. Your opinion matters. If you don't love the show, no one gives a shit what you think.
That's right. No, I'm just kidding.
All right. See you next time.
Take care.